Hey there, welcome to Wednesday and welcome to Carnell Knowledge. My name is Tom Carnell. This is a show I do 3 times a week, drops on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where I give out some reviews slash recommendations on a few books, movies, and records. Things that I think that it might have fallen through the cracks, or things that just the things I've taken in over the last few days. I watch a lot of movies, I read a lot of books, and I listen to a lot of music, and I just think that sometimes things get kind of slipped through the cracks. And this is my attempt to try to shine a light on those. I was a buyer for Tower Records and Record Factory for about 20 years. I published Carpet Nocta magazine back in the 90s, which was kind of a dark art publication. I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about 2 decades, and now I'm an author. You can go to Amazon and look up my author page, and you'll see what that's all about. There's plenty of books there, a couple novels, a couple of short story collections, and a few interview books of things that I covered over the years. Please remember to watch this video till the end. It helps with the algorithm. I would really appreciate that. And if you have a product that you want me to talk about, or just have something you want to talk about offline, go ahead and email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com. Okay, so that's done. That part of this done. Let's go and talk about some movies. The first movie I want to talk about is available on TUBI for free. It's from 2019, directed by Keith Thomas, stars Dave Davis and Minaj Lustig. It's called The Vigil. And the synopsis goes like this. A man providing overnight watch to a deceased member of his former Orthodox Jewish community finds himself opposite a malevolent entity. This is an example of some of the things I love most. Genre passed through the lens of a specific culture, in this case, the Orthodox Jews, has to do in the same way that it may be. We're going to be talking about something very similar in some of these upcoming shows, specifically T.J. Tranchell's book, which is about Mormon exorcists. I love that kind of thing. The Vigil is a perfect example of that. This film, it takes a little bit to get your footing because the culture is so different than what a lot of people are used to. But once you get going, it moves pretty seamlessly. This is a creepy film. It is an atmospheric film. And I love that we are immediately taken from the familiar, i.e. a funeral, into something completely unfamiliar, and then back into a sort of more familiar ground, that of something stalking our hero. Again, very spooky, very disconcerting. The ending is a little rocky, but yeah, you're not going to be able to see this film and go like, oh yeah, it's just like this. It's very, very different. It's very, very special. And again, incredibly creepy. Thoroughly enjoyed it. The Vigil. Up next, from 1961, this is also, The Vigil is available on TUBI. I don't know if I said that, but this is also available on TUBI. From 1961, it's directed by Alfred Voers and stars Joachim Fuchsberger, Karen Ball, and the great Klaus Kinski. It's called Der Toten Augen von London, aka Dead Eyes of London. Has to do with some wealthy, heavily insured men that are being murdered in the city. And Scotland Yard investigates, and it leads to a ring of blind men led by a mysterious reverend. It's the first Edgar Wallace film directed by Alfred Voer. And he would go on to direct 13 more of these bad boys. Easily the most prolific director of the series. Edgar Wallace, if you don't know who it was, he was an author of the early 1900s. An absolute groundbreaker. Most of what is termed the German Krimi film, which is a crime film from the 60s. I've talked a lot about Krimi films in the past. I've talked a lot about Edgar Wallace films, for that matter, in the past. But this film, they were very special in their time and their place. And this is a fine example of one. This German krimi film was not released in the United States until 1965, when it was acquired by Magna Pictures and released in an English dubbed version. On the bottom of a prepackaged double feature with Ricardo Freire as the ghost, something I think we'll be talking about at some point. Again, Edgar Wallace, what can you say? A great writer, great plotter, and that's why his stories made the transition to film so easily and so readily. Very creepy moments to this. Very much feels like a film noir. Moody black and white, seedy nightclubs, and numerous low-life characters. Features a guy, Addie Berber, as Blind Jack, who could pass for a relative of Tor Johnson, just a big, bald, scary guy. The film is fun, but it does lose a little in its translation, so I suggest, if you can, watch it in the original German and watch it subtitled. But it's fantastic. Krimi films have their own vibe to them, their own feel. They can come off a little stage-bound, they can come off a little low budget, but it was the time, and that was just part and parcel of what they did. Let's see. Next film from 1967, also available on TUBI, Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samouraï, starring Alain Delon and Francois Perrier. The synopsis is, after professional hitman is seen by witnesses, his efforts to provide himself an alibi drive him further into a corner. This is one of the most influential films in history. Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, Francis Ford Coppola, Jim Jarmusch, John Woo, Johnny To, David Fincher, Bernardo Bertolucci, the name goes on and on, Takeshi Kitano, Nicholas Winding Refn, Luc Besson, the Coens. They have all stated that they were inspired by this film. Certain films like Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, and The Killer are widely regarded as homages to this film, if not almost unofficial remakes. It's a seminal crime drama. It's very realistic, which was not how these films were at the time. Melville was the spiritual godfather of what was termed the French New Wave in the early 60s, with films like Bob Le Flambeur, La Deluxe, and Le Cercle Rouge. There's sparse dialogue in this film. There's a lot of what I call eye acting, but it is... it's an important film to see just in the terms of cinematic history, but it's also important because of the way it tells its story, the performances that are given, and the overall effect that comes from viewing it. In a way, and follow me on this one, in a way, this film has always reminded me of The Wizard of Oz, in that all the main character wants throughout the entire film is just to go home. And a lot of the comparisons end kind of there. The Samurai has nothing to do with samurais other than it's a lone person battling the elements being society and crime, the law, and that kind of thing. It's a great film. It's a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. Here's another one from 1980, again available on TUBI. The polar opposite of the Jean-Pierre Melville film. This is Umberto Lenzi's INCUBO sulla CITTA CONTAMINATA, aka Nightmare City, aka City of the Walking Dead, again from 1980. Umberto Lenzi directed. Hugo Stiglitz, Laura Trotter, and Mel Ferrer are in this film. And this is bananas. It has to do with an airplane that lands on a runway, having been exposed to radiation, and you kind of sign on for a zombie film. And at the time, that meant very Romeroian zombies, slow moving, arms outstretched. not too smart, not too intuitive, not too agile. So the plane lands and it's surrounded by cops. And this is all within the first 5 minutes of the film. The door opens and out pours not lumbering specters of the dead, but these are the first instance of really fast-moving, aggressive, smart zombies. According to Umberto Lenzi, Franco Nero and Fabio Testi were considered in the lead of the film, but the producer insisted on a Mexican leading man to appeal to Mexican audiences. Hence, the role went to Hugo Stiglitz. If that name sounds familiar, Quentin Tarantino used that name as Til Schweiger's character in his film *Inglourious Basterds*. I remember when I saw *Inglourious Basterds*, when they mentioned Stiglitz, I thought, isn't that the guy from Nightmare City? But again, Tarantino always paying homage. The movie has a high body count, over 160 on-screen victims. It features some just wild stuff. I mean, I mentioned this film before, and I mentioned this scene before on the show, but there is a scene where they are shooting at a TV station. They are shooting essentially what is an episode of Solid Gold, and these fast-moving, very aggressive zombies come pouring onto set and just lay waste to everyone there. To describe it as a tidal wave of gore is not too far afield. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but A, it's Italian, but these things happen, and B, it gets by just on its sheer momentum. Like once that door to the airplane opens and the zombies come out, this film is running on pure high octane, and it's just fantastic. There's a great Stelvio Cipriani score, which I highly recommend. Virtually anything by that guy. Ridiculous, super fun. It did come out late in the cannibal zombie film cycle, so at that point Lenzi knew what worked, what didn't work, and really grabbed the ball and ran with it. Nightmare City is just a hoot. It's a great film to watch when you and your friends are hanging out, drinking a beer or two, and you just want to just stare at the screen gape mouth. I love this film. I'm the first to tell you that it's not great cinema, but still, sometimes you don't want to just. You want go watch *The Samurai* for that. This is something, a horse of a completely different color. Great stuff. Next up, from 2013, again available on TUBI. This is a film it's a documentary I didn't even know existed. It's called The Outsider, the cinema of Antonio Margheriti, directed by his son Eduardo. It's essentially a talking head film. Luigi Cozzi's in it, Fred Williamson's in it, Ernesto Gastaldi is in it. If you don't know who Antonio Margheriti is, he was one of the fathers of genre movies in Italy. His works have been distributed all over the world, and he operates under several pseudonyms. But boy, oh boy, he's one of those guys that never get their due, but boy, do they deserve it. Again, mostly talking heads. The film is done by his son, so it's not anything too hard hitting. It's kind of a tribute to his father, but it's interesting to hear the actors speak of what it was like to work with the man at the time and what was happening in Italy in the 70s and 80s. Just great stuff. Let's see, moving on to books. I only have, again, I've changed the format a little. Reviewing 5 books it was getting to be too much. So now, that said, I'm doing one book or a series of books, which is what these are. These are very special to me. These are the Conan books that Tor put out, or I'm sorry, Ace Fantasy put out. they compile not only the Robert E. Howard stuff, but also a lot of the Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp. They've all got really fantastic Frazetta covers. I'll just buzz through these pretty quick and you can see them. They're just great. I love the Conan series. Growing up, this was a very important lump of books for me. To say that I got a lot of my moral code, I want to say, from two things: Conan the Barbarian and The Godfather. Just great. These things are going to cost you an awful lot. Most of them have been reprinted. But if you can get your mitts on them, boy, are they fantastic. I want to say Dark Horse put out a series that collected a lot of these with some really lovely artwork by Gary Gianni. But again, high adventure. It's kind of sword and sandal. Yeah, it's hard for me to talk about the Conan books with any objectivity, just because, again, growing up, they were just so important to me. As a little boy growing up in a house that didn't have a lot of moral code. So yeah, if you can find them, they're great. If not, you can get collected works on a Kindle for fairly cheap. Whether or not they have the L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter stuff, is dependent upon what version you get. So let's see. Moving on to some records. Let's go through these. We got some bangers this week or today. This show, I tell you, we're going to start with a record from 2020. It's called "Influence." Is the name of the album. It's by Rain Sultanov, Isfar Sarabski, and Nils Olmedal. This is ethno-jazz fusion. It's from Azerbaijan. Imagine like super lush saxophone, very late night city kind of a vibe. Kind of John Clemmer, now that I think about it. But absolutely stunning. I would compare these guys to I Quebec, Eleanor Jacquet, Weather Report, Miles Davis, that kind of thing. It's not showy. It's not that sort of frenetic saxophone that you can hear. This is much more sedate, much more lonely, bluesy kind of feel. Again, Rain Sultanov, and the album is called "Influence." Up next, from 2007, this is a album by a band called Hiromi's Sonicbloom. The album is called "Time Control." This is Hiromi Yohara, her band, who's a pianist and a monster piano player. It has Martin Villahora on drums, Tony Gray on bass, who's a longtime collaborator, and David, I'm going to screw this guy's name up, David Fiogzinski, who is the guitar player for the band Screaming Headless Torsos, which you gotta love that name. It's wildly complicated music, super articulate, if you know what I mean by that. It's just every note is in its place, and every note is expressed absolutely perfectly. It's high energy, fusion, and genre blurring in every single way. Just fantastic. I was really impressed by this band when I first heard it. Reminded me of things like Chick Corea's Electric Band, Alan Holdsworth, Headhunters, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Snarky Puppy. Does any of this? You're getting the feel. This is much more frenetic than some of the other things I'm going to be mentioning, but it's so good. She is a monster keyboard player and well within the realm of being accessible, but still being complicated and still being very, very, again, very intricate. I love this. I love this record. Next up, from 2004, Electrocution 250 is the name of the band. The album is called Electric Cartoon Music from Hell. This is a very short-lived band with just this one record. Lolly Larson on keyboards, Peter Woldower on drums, and Tony Duane on guitar. I'm going to be completely honest with you. You are either going to love this record like I did, or you are going to absolutely hate it. It's aggressively challenging music played by consummate musicians. It defies you to follow along, and I mean that in the very best way. It's totally syncopated. A lot of stops, a lot of starts, a lot of very again, challenging is the word that I would use. I have a couple of friends who adored this record. I have an equal number of friends who are still a little ticked. What is this, they say. Who it reminded me of will give you an idea of who we're talking about. Number one, Frank Zappa. Absolutely, totally reminded me of Frank Zappa. The Mars Volta. Absolutely, it reminded me of the Mars Volta. The Residents. It's not as weird and discordant as the Residents can be, but it's in play. Primus, Gong, the early incarnations of Gong, and the great prog rock band Museo Rosenbach. If you haven't heard them, check them out as well. This is great stuff. It's not for the squeamish. Wear a cup, as I like to say. But boy, if you can latch onto it, and if you can follow it, it is absolutely fantastic. Again, Electrocution 250, and the record is called Electric Cartoon Music from Hell. Just a couple more here. Let's see. There was a band formed in 2000 called CAB. It was an acronym for some of the members' names, even though they misunderstood some of that stuff. It features Bunny Brunel, if you know him, he's a bass player, Tony McAlpine on guitar, Virgil Donati on drums, Dennis Ham on keyboards, and at one time or another, they have other members sort of filter in and filter out of the band, names like Brian Auger, Patrice Rushen, David Hirschfelder, Sam Aliano, Mitch Foreman, Doug Webb. Again, this is super complex jazz, clean and intellectual. It's not like Electrocution 250 in that it's sort of in your face with it. This is much more listenable and much smoother. So if the Electrocution 250 turns you off, check out CAB. They reminded me of things like Vital Tectones, like with Scott Henderson and Victor Wooten, the band Uzeb, Kazumi Watanabe, Planet X, Brand X. Just fantastic. They've got like 3 or 4, maybe 5 records out, and they are really something. Thoroughly enjoyable. Again, you gotta like jazz fusion, but boy, oh boy, it's really something. And then let's see, our last record from 2009. It's the self-titled record by a band called Neural Code. Features Thiago E. Santo on bass, Cuca Texieri on drums, and Kiko Loriero on guitar. Kiko Loriero, it blew me away to hear this, was a guitar player for the band Angra, and then he also did a stint in Megadeth. Now, this is not metal. It's not anything resembling metal. It's more jazz, but it is a burner, an absolute burner. Blends high energy rock, jazz fusion, and Brazilian rhythms. Sold. All I need to do is read that and I'm sold. Dynamic, articulate, and bombastic. Absolutely fantastic. Again, 2009, the self-titled record from Neural Code. And that's going to do it. I hope that you all are enjoying the show. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the bell, as they say, and comment. I usually respond to comments within 12 hours or so. And I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this stuff or anything that you might have. And one final thing I'd like to ask is that you please share this to your social media. It really helps build the channel, which is something I'm trying to do. It's tough out there. There's a lot of people out there offering recommendations. And I'm going to get to that at some point. Speaking of which, I plan to do a couple of specials that I'll drop during the weekends. One is on what I call time in the chair, which is how to become literate in either film or books or music. I have a lot of history with those subjects, and it's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie to you. I spend a lot of time poring over goofy books and listening to videos of people recommending things, and I'm checking them out. I tear out my Spotify. And then I'm also going to do one on what I call the grift of autographs at conventions. There's the amount of money that changes hands will blow your hair back. So we're gonna do a little expose on that, and hopefully you will enjoy that. So that's going to be it. Enjoy your week. You're halfway through, and I'll be back on Friday with a whole batch of other stuff. And have a good week.